morning, everyone, and welcome to the online service of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, spirited, and ever more inclusive community. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, whatever your faith tradition, you're welcome here. My name is Joseph Bednarik, and I've been a member here at QU-UF since the late 1990s. And I'd like to begin this service with an acknowledgement that the water, the land, and the shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the Sklallam and Chemakum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors, and we vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. In a moment, we'll light our chalice, but first let us settle our minds. Let's prepare our hearts for this hour together with the ringing of the chime. I love that chime. Our call to community this morning is What Wondrous Love.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this that caused my heart such bliss, and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, beneath my sorrow's ground, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul. To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who bleed and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end I will sing.
Thank you, Katy. It is now time for our chalice lighting ritual. Please join me and our vaccinated worship assistant, Susan Pratt. Our chalice lighting words this morning, they're an aphorism from the Argentinian poet and gardener Antonio Porcia. Even the smallest of creatures carries a sun in its eyes. And our opening words this morning are by Kim Stafford. It's a poem entitled Practicing the Complex Yes. When you disagree with a friend, a stranger, or a foe, how do you reply by not saying simply no? For no can stop the conversation or turn it into an argument, or worse, the conversation that must go on as a river must, a friendship, a troubled nation. So may we practice the repertoire of complex yes, yes. And in what you say, I see yes. And at the same time, yes. And what if, yes, I hear you, and how? Yes, and there's an old story. Yes. And as the old song goes, yes, and as a child once told me, yes, yes, tell me more, I want to understand. And then I want to tell you how it is for me. And now is the time in our service that everyone has been waiting for, and that's Bo Olgren, our Director of Family Ministry, with a story for all ages. Truly, a story for all ages. Bo.
Good morning, everyone. Today, Joseph is going to spend some time exploring faith and values and how we consider what we believe. And Shaggington and I thought that this classic RE book, What is God, by Tan Bortzer and illustrated by Robbie Morantz, would be the perfect story to share with you. This book allows us to consider different faiths as we explore an RE and is meant to be the opener to a conversation, as always. What is God? This is a very, very big question. Many people of all genders and all ages who live all over the world want to know, what is God? Maybe we can't really talk about God because we can't see, hear, or even taste, smell, or touch God. Maybe it's a feeling like love, or like we can feel happy or sad. Maybe we can feel God when there is loud thunder or bright lightning outside of our windows. Maybe God is what you feel when you stand on a very high mountain and see a big, beautiful view all around you. Maybe God is what you feel when you see a million stars at night and you feel very small looking up at them. Or maybe God is what you feel when you hear beautiful music, sometimes soft and sometimes loud. Maybe God is an eternal mystery, like a big puzzle with lots of little pieces you have to fit together. Some people think that there are teachers who have been able to solve this puzzle. What is God? And these teachers have come from many places in the world and have talked in many different languages. But if there are so many different ways to learn about the forever puzzle of God, how can we ever begin to understand God? Well, we can start by learning about different religions, like reading different holy books. Most religions have a holy book in which someone wrote down what their teacher taught about God. People of the Christian religion read a holy book called the Bible. People of the Muslim religion read a holy book called the Quran. People of the Jewish religion read a holy book called the Torah. Buddhists read the sutras, while Hindu people read the Vedas. People of every religion understand God in their own different way. Sometimes people of one religion want everyone to know what is God in the same way that they understand God, or don't like people of another religion just because their religion is different. I think because they don't understand that most religions are almost the same. How are most religions almost the same? Well, most religions teach that you should be good to other people. Most religions say that you should not lie or steal or hurt people. There are many ways that religions are the same. There are also people that believe there are many gods, not just one God, and of course people who don't believe in God at all. One thing to know about God is that when people of any religion pray to God, they are really praying for that feeling which connects us all. When someone really wants to feel God, you can think of how you are connected to everything, even if you are not touching everything. And if you can start to feel God like that, then maybe you will soon feel the whole answer to that very, very big question. What is God? Exploring religion is one way that we determine what beliefs fit for us. And I'm so glad that we as Unitarian Universalists support that responsible and introspective exploration all throughout our lives.
Thank you, Bo. What we'd like to do now is acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. If you are watching this on our Facebook page or on YouTube, you are invited to say hello in the comments section and tell us your name and where you're from. If you're having a hard time even seeing the comments section, simply take your computer or phone out of full screen mode and you will see the chat section on the right-hand side of the screen. We would love to hear from you. And we hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour in our Fellowship Hall Zoom room after the service. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat section at the end of the service. And if you find this service useful or inspirational, hopefully both, please share the link with your friends and family. So, welcome everyone. We're glad that you're with us today. Now it's time to receive our offering. Today our collection will go towards the building, program, and staffing costs of QUUF. If you'd like to donate today, you have 3 options. You can text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen. You can go to our website, QUUF.org, and click on the Giving link, or simply mail a check to QUUF. Just remember to write QUUF on the memo line. So we will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Pat Rodgers play that familiar African-American spiritual, Every Time I Feel the Spirit.
Thank you, Pat. That was lovely. We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus we place this first stone, thinking in particular of those people that we encountered this week who made our life a bit more joyful, a bit more spicy. That pleasant smile, the open door, the offer of, can I help with that? These are all ways of saying, I see you, friend. We'll get through this together. And now, within the congregation, we start out with a sorrow. Nils Pettersson's godson, Simon Jensen, is severely autistic. He will turn 30 this year, but he has recently began having trouble walking. And now he has been diagnosed with an extremely rare genetic disorder called spastic paraplegia type 26. It strikes about 1 in about every 100 million individuals. Beyond many other complications in his life, it's expected to shorten his life expectancy dramatically. With this candle, Nils asks you that you hold Simon and his mother Valerie in your thoughts. And this joy from Barbara Morey, quote, I have been released from 5 months of medical house arrest, including 3 ambulance rides and 5 days in the cardiac unit at St. Michael's Hospital. I am finally able to drive in town, put away my walker, and take my dog Alfie for walks around the block. Special thanks to Julia Cochran and Kristen and Otto Smith for their daily support. We have 4 birthdays to celebrate this week, and Each person deserves their own candle. First, Cindy Britton. Dan Anderson. Flossie Bodie. You're doing an excellent job over there, Susan. There is a lot of flame to be managing. And finally, Lee Faulkner, who writes, quote, "This coming Monday, May 17th, I will be 84 years old, and I would really appreciate a candle of joy to celebrate." Right on. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and the sorrows that I've just shared, but also thinking of joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed and perhaps too tender to share publicly. Thanks. I now invite you into a moment of silence, which will be followed by a musical response. Thank you, Pat, once again. Beautiful. The reading this morning is a poem by Denise Levertov called That Day. And one quick note, when the poet refers to Blake's inkwash vision, the next line that follows is the title of a piece of William Blake's art. Across a lake in Switzerland 50 years ago, light was jousting with long lances, fencing with broadswords, back and forth among cloudy peaks and foothills. We watched from a small pavilion, my mother and I, enthralled. And then, behold, a shaft, a column, a defined body, not of light, but of silver rain, formed and set out from that distant shore, leaving behind the silent feints and thrusts, and advanced unswervingly at a steady pace toward us. I knew this. I'd seen it. Not the sensation of déjà vu. It was Blake's inkwash vision, the Spirit of God moving upon the face of the waters. The column steadily came on across the lake toward us. On each side of it, there was no rain. We rose to our feet, breathless, and then it reached us, took us into its veil of silver, wrapped us in finest weave of wet, and we laughed for joy, astonished. Our special music today is Shall We Gather at the River, performed by the Kyle family.
Shall we gather at the river, where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with a melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Shall we gather at the river?
As we begin today's sermon, I want to give fair warning that this talk will include descriptions of evangelical preachers and also the story of a tent revival. And for this cowboy, I just want to say that religion is one of the most fascinating aspects of the human experience, and most every person on the planet has their behavior guided and informed in some way by religious principles and practices. The marquee religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, and Buddhism, they account for about 60% of the world's population, with another 4,000 distinct and active religions accounting for the other 40%. Now consider that statistic. There are over 4,000 distinct and active religions alive and well on the planet right now. And Unitarian Universalism makes up about 0.0004% of the total of the most popular religion on earth, and that's Christianity. It's essentially microscopic in comparison. Now that said, we know in our bones that religion is not a popularity contest, and being small in numbers, relatively, doesn't mean that you cannot have a profound and positive impact on the world. So for me, becoming aware of religious practices, rites, rituals, beliefs, and worship sites, it helps keep the world a rich and interesting place. Now, over the past 35 years, I have personally known Jews who keep kosher and practice Sabbath, Lutherans who believe that they eat and drink the body and blood of Christ, Sikhs who rise at 4 a.m. to gather consciousness, Catholics who pray the rosary, atheists who meditate, Druids who worship nature, Wiccans who make tinctures, Mormons who have been excommunicated, Swedenborgians who hold fast to the writings of an 18th century mystic, New Agers who channel spirit beings and perform firewalks. I once knew an Oregon roofer who was sent to prison because his child died when he and his wife chose faith healing over going to a doctor. Humanist environmentalists who are, quote, spiritual, not religious. And with a bit of reflection, I believe that you could draw up a similar list of people you know and the religious practices that you have encountered. And you yourself likely have personal inventory of religious engagement, from walking a labyrinth to singing inside a glorious cathedral. So it makes perfect sense, that when my brother told me about a tent revival led by a world record knife thrower and bullwhip artist, I just absolutely jumped at the opportunity. My brother was visiting from Japan with his Japanese wife and their young daughter. They were staying at my parents' house in western New York, and because their visits from Japan are rare, my family and I made the cross-country trip to hang out with them. And my brother showed me an article from the local newspaper with this headline: Frewsburg Church to host world record holding knife thrower. He showed me the article, and the 2 early paragraphs read, Lash and Steel Ministries will be visiting the Frewsburg First Baptist Church and will be bringing with them an arsenal of knives, tomahawks, and bullwhips. Note the word arsenal. The article continued, along with being an ordained preacher in the King James Version of the Gospel, John Bailey is also a Guinness World Record holder in whip-cracking speed and accuracy, as well as a 3-time and current world champion quick-draw knife thrower. Count me in. Now, it turns out that Lash and Steel, they had been performing that weekend for a large secular audience at a local rodeo. Lash and Steel, they traveled the country delighting rodeo crowds, and then they would always go to nearby churches to preach and to save souls. Now, it took some convincing for my then 16-year-old daughters to join my brother and me, though they sensed an adventure, and they climbed into the car. Now, please know that my daughters were raised in a small religion with big ambitions called Unitarian Universalism, and when they were in 5th grade, they participated in a year-long curriculum here at QUUF called Neighboring Faiths, where the Sunday school class would make site visits to the houses of worship for many different faiths. Over the course of the year, they studied the beliefs of many religions, and they visited a synagogue, a mosque, a predominantly African-American Baptist church, a Hindu temple, and a Buddhist temple. Conveniently, the houses of worship for the 5 major world religions. They participated in worship services, they talked with religious leaders, and through the engagement of this UU religious education, they experienced, my children, firsthand, the wide variety of religious expression within a very short drive from their front door. And while incredibly enriching and educational, they had never confronted, personally or viscerally, the notion of their salvation. Now, the idea of salvation within Unitarian Universalism is encompassed within the Universalist idea that God's love is so profound, so powerfully profound, that all souls enjoy salvation, hence universal salvation, the root word for Universalist. And since this tent revival was not my first rodeo, I had the sense that the eternal topics of heaven and hell and the fearsome wonderment of where your soul was going forever after you died, I had a sense that those were Lash and Steel's bread and butter issues. So on the drive over to Frewsburg, I told my daughters something like this: you know, at some point, Lash and Steel, they are going to make an intense and emotional pitch to save your soul. This is what they are called to do. You will be asked to open your heart and give your life over to Jesus, to be saved, to be converted. This will be the great and glorious invitation on this lush summer night. And while it's your choice, know that when the moment comes, it is going to be a hard sell. And they will aim for your emotions. They will aim for your vulnerability. They will aim directly at your doubt. And they are going to present certainty and salvation against eternal damnation. Just be prepared. It was something like that. Now, I figured that the evening would unfold something like that because when I was a teenager, I loved going to see evangelical preachers when I was young. I attended these rollicking services on my own. No prompting from my parents, no prompting from anyone else. And during that time in my young life, I desperately wanted to be confident and certain about the state of my eternal soul, as well as the souls of my beloved family. I felt in my body the rhythms and the meter of the preaching, of the sweating, of the hallelujahing. I marveled in the certainty and the release, the offer for forgiveness. I wanted it, but I never, ever walked down the aisle to the altar. I always hung back. I always watched the others be saved and sanctified and born again in the Spirit. And I would walk home in the night's darkness, wondering. And so after we parked the car, we walked to the 100-year-old white clapboard church, and you could not fail to notice above this sky blue door a bright red neon sign in all capital letters that read, "Christ died for our sins." Red and blazing neon. Christ died for our sins on a white church above a blue door. Now, this small town church was essentially a living monument to religious America. And then we heard the shot rang out. Bang! And then another. Bang! Now, I thought someone was firing off a handgun. It was that loud. But we looked around the corner, and we saw this giant of a man in a huge cowboy hat warming up his bullwhip and cracking it loud. Essentially, the definition of whip crack. Bang! We figured that was Lash. Now, there was this giant blue and white striped tent set up at the back of the church and the outside of the church. And there were about 150 fold-up chairs, and there were hymnals on about, every third or fourth chair. And there was a large crowd that had been gathered. And there was only one set of 4 chairs that were together, and it was right in the front row. So my brother and I, we walked toward them, to the grave concern of my daughters. No, Papa, please, not the front row. But we all wanted to sit together, so the front row is where we wound up. Mark Twain would have loved it. Now, Preacher John Bailey, a.k.a. Lash, he began the evening with a prayer and a song, and then the show began. He performed a wide variety of tricks and stunts, such as having his assistant, Steele, his wife, hold a long-stemmed flower out of her mouth, and then he would slice the stem in half with his long black bullwhip. His show patter included the physics of bullwhips, noting that the first thing on earth to break the sound barrier was the end of a bullwhip, as well as a reference to the Lord, reference to the Bible, references to righteousness. And throughout the evening, John Bailey asked for volunteers from the audience, and all 4 of us at one time or another stepped forward. My brother, he was taught how to crack a bullwhip. My daughters got the opportunity to hurl knives and ninja throwing stars at the face of the devil. "Try to hit the devil's eyeball," Lash advised. It was actually quite lovely. And then somewhere along the way, one of my daughters spilled the beans that I delivered sermons. So Lash assumed that I was a minister. Now, for his next stunt, Lash said that he always enjoyed having a person of the cloth, a minister, be the volunteer. And he beckoned me forward. And there we were, under the billowing tent on a sweet summer night in rural New York. Rural New York, by the way, the home of both spiritualism and Mormonism. "What denomination?" he asked me. Note, he did not ask what religion, but what denomination. I bit my tongue, and I decided not to provoke him with atheist or theist or Zenist, and I said what was most accurate. Unitarian Universalist. He furrowed his brow, gave a little sideways cock to his head, and come again? Unitarian Universalist. It's a very liberal religion, I said. Lash absorbed those 11 syllables for a few long seconds, and then he explained to the gathered the next part of the show that I was going to stand against a bright red board with my arms crossed over my heart, and that Lash was going to throw knives around the perimeter of my body. The crowd expressed their eagerness to witness this. And looking into Lash's eyes, I said, "No, thank you." He laughed my no off, assuring me that he had performed this feat hundreds of times around the world, and everything always worked out. Then, this former Marine with a prosthetic leg could not help himself. He leaned into me and said, "Be a man." So only he and I could had that conversation. We stared at each other for a long, long moment, essentially a short eternity. "I am a man," I said, "and no thank you." I walked back to my front row folding chair. I knew full well from those financial advisor commercials on late night radio that past performance is no guarantee of future gains, so I did not want to be the first public, bloody, liberal religion limb-lopping misfire of his career. And so John Bailey, he recovered from this volunteer from the audience revolt, and he continued his show, which of course led to the soul-saving reason why we're all there in the first place. And more to the point, why Lash and Steel were there in some rural backwater on a summer Monday evening after a rodeo weekend. We got down to the real business at hand. Lash stood behind a small lectern. He was bigger than life, with his red KJV Bible, and he asked us to close our eyes and to bow our heads. He was going to ask the gathered some questions. And this was the exact scenario that I alerted my daughters to. And it turned out that this confrontation with salvation and eternity had a profound impact. One daughter actually used this experience as the basis for her bridging ceremony speech here in our sanctuary when she graduated from high school. She also used the experience for the topic for her college entrance essay. So to close this morning's sermon, and with permission from my daughter, here is the conclusion of her speech, which she delivered to a sanctuary that was filled with Unitarian Universalists. These are her words. Preacher Bailey asked everyone to bow their heads and to close their eyes. He told us to raise our hands if we knew in our hearts that we were going to heaven. I did not raise my hand. He asked us to raise our hands if we accepted Jesus as our personal Savior. I did not raise my hand. He asked if we wanted to be saved and have an afterlife in heaven. I did not raise my hand. I could feel the preacher's eyes on me. My heart started pounding, my palms were clammy, but I took a deep breath and I kept my hands to myself. I quietly and boldly stood up for my beliefs, although I don't know exactly what they were, and I'm still searching. I knew from my head to my heart to my toes that they were not what he was preaching. This experience was the first time that my beliefs were truly confronted, and I was able to practice my UU values out in the real world. I stood up for my beliefs while being respectful and kind to John Bailey and the people at the service. I experienced a different religion and I was able to really think and come up with my own conclusions. Being a Unitarian Universalist gave me the power and the tools to navigate a bullwhip, knife-throwing tent revival with grace. And I am so grateful. Now listen close to that, friends, because this is your religion in action. I experienced a different religion, and I was able to really think and come up with my own conclusions. May we all be so open. May we all be so present. And I want to thank you, Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, for helping create the strength in my daughter to help her be spiritually safe in the front row at her very first whip-cracking religious rodeo. Amen. And now let's join Pat Rodgers leading the Vaccinated Singers, a vaccinated subset of our QUUF Salish Sea Choir, in singing Guide My Feet.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race.
by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain.
Please join us in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. After the service, I hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is to be placed in a Zoom room with one of our coffee hour hosts who will facilitate personal check-ins as well as reflection questions on the sermon topic. Hope to see you there. But before we get to those Zoom rooms, let's first turn our attention to Pat Rodgers, who will now play our Postlude. And you might even want to sing along. We'll see you.